Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tonight on the SEC ESPN Network, we've got something special for you. It's a preseason look at the 2019 LSU Gymnastics team. This is the annual event, an intra-squad meet with all the trimmings called Gymnastics 101. We welcome you inside the Maravich Center with Lori Strong-Ballard, former Georgia All-America, former national champion at Georgia, and two-time member of the Canadian Olympic team. I'm Lynn Rollins. Lori, Gymnastics 101, they've been doing it here for 6, 7, 8 years now. It's good for the participants. It's good for the fans. What's it all about as LSU prepares for the 2019 season?
Well, Gymnastics 101 is a great opportunity for this team to simulate what it feels like to be back in the competition environment. For months now, they've been training in the comfort of their training facility, and now it's time to take those routines here into the competition environment on this equipment with hard landings and competing in front of a huge fan base. There will be nerves, and they need to work through that. It's also a great opportunity for the fans to get to know this new 2019 LSU Gymnastics team. There'll be some new faces, some new routines, and Gymnastics 101 is always an awesome opportunity for them to see the debut of some new choreography and floor routines.
LSU in recent seasons has made a national name for itself, certainly one of the elite teams across the country. The scope of women's gymnastics, about 90 members strong across this land. 2 runner-up finishes in the last 3 years, and last year a number 4 finish nationally. What are the projections for 2019?
Well, the future looks very bright for this LSU Gymnastics team. You know, they graduated some very talented athletes, but in reality, they only need to replace 5 solid routines. And they returned 7 All-Americans, including Sarah Finnegan, who was the SEC All-Around and Gymnast of the Year. She's also a national champion on bars. Associate head coach Jay Clark calls her the Michael Jordan of this team. They also returned McKenna Kelly, who tore her Achilles tendon just over a year ago. She is back training hard and can contribute on possibly 3 events. She brings a lot of power to floor and vault, and she also brings a lot of leadership and enthusiasm to this team. LSU has 2 new faces, 2 freshmen, including Bailey Ferrer, who arrived here on campus just a few days ago. Once they bring her up to speed, she can definitely step into some lineups early in the season, including floor and vault.
You know, it seems to me that on paper, potentially, this is one of the deepest LSU teams in recent years.
When they get everyone healthy, this will be a very deep team. There's been a lot of talent that has been on the sidelines, especially amongst their sophomore class, who are now feeling better and stepping up and into the lineups. And you know, having a deep team is always fantastic. It increases the competitiveness in the training gym, and that steps up everyone's performance. And it also allows athletes who do have nagging injuries to be able to step aside a little bit, get healthy, and others can step up. So LSU's in a great situation here with their depth.
You know, Lori, over the past few years, gymnastics in Baton Rouge has truly become a sports phenomenon. It is blossoming beyond perhaps anybody's expectations. This is an amazing story when you consider where this attendance has been. And if you take away football from the LSU campus, gymnastics is the #1 attended event at this university.
Well, this is the place to be in Baton Rouge on a Friday night. The environment is incredible. It is a great family atmosphere. You can bring your kids, your friends, and really enjoy entertaining sportsmanship. And, you know, for LSU, last year, the average attendance was over 12,000. That is number 2 in the nation, number 1 in the SEC for attendance. And already they've broken a new record for season ticket sales at 6,000 tickets. Just 6 years ago, they only sold 500 season tickets. So this is a booming sport here in Baton Rouge.
And one quick reminder, there are still season tickets available if you want to come out and watch one of the most phenomenal, exciting, family-friendly sports going in America today. Well, indeed, that describes what we're going to see tonight and throughout the season, which starts in early January as we get set for the first event tonight, the LSU Tigers on vault. Juliana Canamella, a senior, Ruby Harold, Lexi Priestman, Sarah Edwards, Sarah Finnegan, and Kendi Edney will participate in this event. And Lori, this may or may not be the lineup we'll see as the season progresses. Certainly there are going to be some changes, but this is the opening event, so to speak, for the 2019 season, and you see that lineup getting ready to go. There's Dee Bro addressing the crowd. 42 years as the gymnastics coach at LSU.
Are you ready? All right, Coach, we'll come back to you after the second rotation. Let's go, Tigers, make some noise!
42 years, the dean of all sports in the history of the Southeastern Conference. Nobody has coached any longer than Dee Bro.
And still as enthusiastic about her job here as their head coach as she ever was.
Last year, LSU finished 5th as a team in this vault, and we will see Juliana Canamella right here. Her career, unfortunately, has been derailed at times because of a series of injuries, some serious, some nagging, but it will be good to see her if she can finish her senior year healthy.
Well, just a few months ago, I was here for a inter squad, and she could barely walk because of the pain in her back. They've been rehabbing extensively, and it is great to see her out there. She looks pain-free. She looked aggressive in warm-up. Nice job there with a Yurchenko layout full. That's a 995 start value, but actually LSU is training 7 10-0 start value vaults. That will certainly give them a competitive edge if they can get more of those in the lineup.
Canamella, a senior from Waxhaw, North Carolina. LSU last year 33-5 on the year, 7-0 in the Southeastern Conference in those 7 dual meets. LSU won 23 of 28 events and went undefeated last year in the vault and the bars. Ruby Harold is next. Her best last year was 9.95 on this event, and that's her career best as well.
She's a 2-time Olympian for Great Britain, a 3-event contributor for the LSU Tigers, and she's got a really cool accent to go with it as well. Now, Ruby did struggle a little bit during warm-up. I was watching her. She does a Yurchenko 1.5 vault, and she was sitting it down a little bit. So we'll see if her experience can pay off here to put it on her feet.
Ruby Harold.
See her talking to herself, giving herself some last-minute coaching. Staying aggressive in the approach. Yurchenko 1.5. She puts it on her feet, digging deep with that competitiveness. I love to see that.
By the way, there are judges here, although not the full complement, and there will be scoring, but it's not the prominent part of the meet. It's all about the experience and getting the fans acquainted with the new gymnastics team.
And something else we have to point out, and this is something that Bob Moore uses as a strategy, he doesn't emphasize necessarily the stuck landings right out of the gate. He wants to see the power, the technique, and of course the difficulty on these vaults, but the landings will come later, and LSU's done a really good job of peaking in the end. Last year at the Super 6 Finals, they put up their highest score of the year with a 49.4625. Peak at the end, that's what you want.
Lexi Priestman, a senior, 9.925, her career and season's best of a year ago.
She put up a 9.925 to help LSU beat the Gators last year. She's a gamer. Yurchenko full, it's clean, good distance, a 995 start value. We talked about trying to get those 10-0 start values into the lineup more often. She is training your Yurchenko 1.5. We may see that a little bit later in the season, but for now she does this vault so well, it's almost not worth risking a 1/2 tenth bonus.
You know, you talked about the Florida Gators. They will be coming in here in mid-January, and you better get your tickets now because they are very highly regarded at the beginning of the season, and that'll be a couple of meets into the season for LSU. Mid-January, a very special Florida LSU event in Baton Rouge.
Two very talented, competitive teams going head-to-head. The environment will be crazy in here.
And just one footnote on Priestman. She had a bicep tendon problem at the end of last year. It was operated on, and she's still trying to regain strength in that shoulder.
She is absolutely one tough lady. She has had so many surgeries on shoulders, biceps, you name it, and she is still going strong and performing for her team.
Sarah Edwards.
What a year she had last year as a freshman, especially on this event. She just flies on that vault. Yurchenko layout 1.5. I mean, the block is incredible.
Her best a year ago as a rookie was 9.95 on this event.
Speed in the run, open shoulders as she blocks. That means she's going straight up into the air. Incredible height and distance on a difficult vault.
And that was about a 1/10 deduction. Pat, 1/10 deduction on the landing. That was a great vault for December.
This is one of the things I like about Gymnastics 101. You get to hear Dee Dee Bro explaining what you're seeing, but also from a coach's standpoint. And, she'll offer some tips here on the PA and do a critique of what we've just seen. This is one of the unique things, and it brings people closer to the sport.
Yeah, it's an educational opportunity for them to get to know the sport. Gymnastics is a difficult sport to follow, so anytime you can get that knowledge, it's helpful. Wow. Oh, my goodness. Look at McKenna Kelly. She is blown away by that vault.
Sarah Finnegan, the SEC Gymnast of the Year in 2018.
She just gets after that run, knows exactly where her hands are going to be placed on the vaulting table, rockets it into the air. She gets the stick crown. Absolutely, almost perfection there.
I've got an early slogan for Finnegan. Win again with Sarah Finnegan.
Oh, sounds great.
And now Kennedy Edney waiting her term. 9.95 was her best last year. 9.9875 is her career best. We talked about it a year ago, Lori. I truly believe that this young lady, a junior from California, is the next superstar in the SEC.
Without a doubt. I mean, as a freshman, she was a national champion on vault. First meet ever competing, she came out and nailed this vault. What a competitor she has proven to be. Just a step on the landing, but that is a massive vault. It's hard to even tell when you're watching it on the TV or on a monitor, but when you see it in person and see the distance and height she gets, it's just incredible. LSU does a great job of getting their athletes strong and physically fit. They emphasize speed in the sprint. In fact, Bob Moore sometimes complains that they're running too hard.
There's Bob Moore, who's been one of the nation's best vault coaches for a long, long time.
Do anything I ask, as many times as I want. It's a dream in the gym to coach. I'm just a lucky guy. Lucky guy.
By the way, LSU's highest placement at the Super 6 finals a year ago was in vault when the Tigers finished second nationally behind Oklahoma in the vault event. So we'll step aside and be back with the bars coming up. You've seen Canamella, Harold, Priestman, Edwards, Finnegan, and Edney. We're underway, Gymnastics 101 from the Maravich Center in Baton Rouge. Gymnastics 101 from the LSU campus as we preview the 2019 LSU Gymnastics season from the Maravich Center on the SEC ESPN network with Lori Strong-Ballard. I'm Lynn Rollins. Lori, let's look in the rearview mirror at the vaults from Sarah Edwards, Sarah Finnegan, and Kennedy Edney.
Well, one thing LSU proved tonight is that this Tiger team can fly on vault. Sarah Edwards showing off what she does the best, and that is block. Nice big height on that Yurchenko 1.5, a 10.0 start value, just a step on the landing, but again, Bob Moore is not emphasizing those landings just yet.
If you were judging that, what score would you give it?
Probably a 9.9.
Okay, so
and for
very,
Sarah
very strong.
Finnegan, a 9.95, because it is a start value of a 9.95, and it was perfect. Kennedy Edney here doing the Yurchenko 1.5. Step out on the landing, about a 10th deduction there as well, but huge vaulting ability for this LSU team.
So coming up next, the LSU Tigers will participate on bars. We'll have that for you right after this timeout on the SEC ESPN network. Season look at the LSU Gymnastics team. This is Gymnastics 101. Coming up this year for LSU, the schedule is very attractive. what you're going to see, the boxed opponents are the home schedule games. LSU opens up against California on the 4th and then goes to Auburn in an early SEC showdown.
Well, in terms of scheduling, I think this is one of the most exciting years in school history. They have 6 home meets, and then they get to host the regional championships right here at the PMAC. That is a 3-day event to determine who goes to the national championships. And the SEC championships are at the Smoothie King Center just an hour away. That's March 23rd, and the Tigers will try to defend their SEC title there. So a great opportunity for this team to compete big events with their fans involved, and a great opportunity for the fans to be a part of 2 championship events.
And LSU in January certainly faces a formidable schedule in Auburn, Florida, and Alabama back to back to back.
That's how you prepare. You got to beat the best.
This is Sammy Durante.
She was the leadoff on bars all last season, did a fabulous job for them. Her high score was a 9.925. Nice release move, and then a pack salto down to the low bar, which she does very nicely as she hits those handstands right on top with gorgeous legs and toe point.
Sammy was a rookie a year ago, a freshman, and performed extremely well.
And you can see Associate Head Coach Jay Clark stepping in there, just assisting a little bit on the landing. He would not normally do that in a competition, but for tonight's event, it's still early in the season, and the priority is making sure that these athletes stay safe and healthy. You can hear Dee Dee in the background getting a little tough on the positioning of her last handstand there, saying that she was just slightly out. The expectations are very, very high for these athletes.
Here's one of the young ladies you talked about as potentially playing a very key role as a sophomore, and that is Bridget Dean.
Former elite and level 10 gymnast, and she was an alternate for several meets on bars and beam, but never really broke the lineup last year, so she's been working very hard to get into this lineup. Of course, right now she's probably feeling a little bit of those nerves, but that's a good thing, putting them in this type of environment and seeing how they respond.
This is the only event of 4 that your feet are not in contact with something, some surface, and it's demanding.
I think it's one of the most difficult events because it's not like any other. It requires a certain skill set. Nice ray release move there. Caught a little bit close, but not bad. Toe-hand combination down to the low bar. Dee Dee talked about hitting those vertical positions from the high to the low bar handstand. Gaining speed in her giants for her dismount. It's a double layout. Tiny hop on the landing. Great performance for her first competitive experience as a Tiger.
Bridget Dean out of Fort Myers, Florida. Last year, this was an extraordinarily successful event for LSU. #1 in the nation on bars for the first time in LSU's history.
I mean, you have to say this is their most improved event over the last 6 years. I mean, it went from an event where they just tried to put routines together to now being an event where they are competitive with the best in the country. Better training methods, better routine content, and of course, stronger recruiting for athletes on this event all help.
There you saw 7 of the top 10 scores in the history of LSU Gymnastics came last year on this bar event.
Other than that, it was very good, okay? Very good.
You know, to get the average that LSU achieved last year on bars, that meant each gymnast had to score just under 9.9. That's everybody in the rotation. And there was phenomenal consistency in high scores throughout the 4-month season a year ago.
Associate Head Coach Jay Clark really trains his athletes not only to be impeccably clean and physically strong, but also mentally strong as well. One of his tactics is that he will have them loosen or tighten the bars on different days to make them get used to a different feel on the bar, and there is no complaining on this event. Ruby Harrell showing off her unique routine, that shoot from high to low bar. Nice job on her Jaeger. Hop change, right into the dismount, double front, a blind landing, and just a step. Well done.
The strength that it requires, the upper body strength, the wrist strength, the balance, the courage, the hustle on the bars. This makes it a very attractive.
Coach Clark also expects them to use all the different training bars within the gym, so you don't get used to one set, because every time you go to a competition, they feel a little bit different. They're a little looser, they're a little slipperier. You have to be able to adjust to be able to compete at this level.
Blind landing. She doesn't see the floor. She has to feel the floor. That was a nice routine. She had good handstands, good swing, amplitude throughout the routine, and difficulties spread out throughout the routine. Way to go, Ruby.
Next up, Kennedy Edney. Her best score a year ago was 9.975, and that's her career best. The guy you see on the right, Jay Clark, for a long time has been recognized earnestly as one of the best bar coaches in America. And we will have a chance to talk with Jay when the Tigers compete on beam.
And next up for your Fighting Tigers, Kennedy Edney.
Kennedy Edney, a junior now, a 2-year letter winner.
Going through her routine in her head before she begins, using her words, visualizing what she'll do. She opens the routine with a big release move here. It's called a Hindorf. It's from a clear hip, release, straddle, and catch. Right on. Down to the low bar, hits that handstand nicely, toe circle. Need to get vertical here, staying aggressive in that handstand. She has cat-like reflexes when it comes to landings, but over-rotates it just a little bit there. That timing will come with a few more reps under her belt in competition. Here's the Hindorf. Shoots up through the handstand position, has to sit up into a straddle position, and then re-grasp the bar. Gorgeous job, though, on the dismount in terms of the shape. Just a really straight line. Often you see them either piked or too arched. She is perfectly straight.
Am I okay with positive?
Head coach Dee Dee Bro making light of the fact that she can be a little tough. You know, she has high expectations, but that is what makes this team great. Trying to stay positive at this point in the season, but she's a tough cookie.
Lexi Priestman was originally scheduled to be in the number 5 spot, but she's been scratched, and this is Sarah Finnegan. Finnegan has scored a 10 on this event. One of the best in the country.
First LSU athlete to bring home a national title here. Gorgeous form. Look at her toe point. Digs deep for the handstand and the dismount, double layout, drops into the landing. She knows her gymnastics so well.
She stuck that landing like a spear dropped from a helicopter.
Look at the toe point, absolutely gorgeous. That's called a ray. Toe hand into a release.
You may have noticed we only did 5 bar routines tonight. Lexi is ready to go, but for whatever reason couldn't get her shoulder warmed up well tonight, so she'll be in there as well. We're just getting Ashlyn Kirby going again. Open. All right, we'll live with it. No, don't clap for that. Don't clap for that. No. We're getting Ashlyn Kirby going again. We had a little procedure done on her elbow. She missed about 6 weeks, so she's a little behind. Bailey Ferrer arrived on campus yesterday, and so we're still adding a little more depth on this event, but we feel good about it. We've got 5 of the 6 returning from last year's team. that was the #1 team in the nation all year long, so we feel good about where we're going to be.
Well, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? High expectations again for LSU on bars. We'll be back with Beam coming up as we continue with LSU Gymnastics 101 on the SEC ESPN Network. Assembly Center, a preseason look at the LSU Gymnastics team, a fourth-place finisher nationally last year and runners-up in the 2 years prior to that. As we take a look at bars in the rearview mirror, Bridget Dean and Sarah Finnegan coming your way.
And sophomore Bridget Dean having an exceptional routine in her first competitive experience as a Tiger. That certainly feels good from an athlete's perspective. There's the dismount, double layout, little leg separation, tiny hop on the landing, but the routine was solid start to finish. And of course, Sarah Finnegan, the 2017 national bar champion, doing what she does amazingly well. Near perfection routine right out of the gates here. Here's the dismount, double layout, looks for the landing, and fights for it right to the end, does not move the feet. That's a competitor.
LSU was the #1 ranked bars team in America last year. When we come back after this timeout, we'll talk to Associate Coach Jay Clark about the prospects for this event in 2019. Events you'll see on Gymnastics 101 from the Maravich Center here at LSU. But right now we have the pleasure of talking with Jay Clark as we've just seen the bars routine. Jay, #1 in the nation a year ago was this LSU team in that event, but it's all about what's upcoming. How do you feel about the prospects to defend your title?
Oh, I feel great about that event. I think, actually, I feel great about every event, but I feel great about that event. Like I mentioned earlier to our crowd, we've got 5 of the 6 returning from that event last year. We've gotten off to a little bit of a slower start, more just precautionary than anything. That's why we put 5 up tonight. But Lexi Priestman will be back in there. Ashlyn Kirby's getting going again. Bailey Ferrer is on campus now, and so you'll see a couple of lineup changes from what you saw tonight. But I feel great about it. Obviously, there's some execution things that you expect this time of year, particularly on last handstands. And before I stepped over here, I saw Bridget's dismount from the end there, and you can see that her legs were apart. But these are things that we work on daily. But a lot of times, one of the reasons we get in here to get them in this environment, because they typically will kind of what we call run home to mama. They run home to bad habits the first time or second time you get them into this environment. So that's one of the reasons we get them in here to do that, kind of shake those things out.
We talked a little bit while we were watching the performances about some of your training techniques, about how sometimes you loosen and tighten the bars a little bit and make them use all the different bars in the training. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that prepares them mentally.
I'm old, and over the years you go different places and the bars feel different, and some places have freestanding or jug bars, and some have them bolted into the ground. And so I make them switch their set of bars every week. Tell the managers occasionally loosen them up a little today or tighten them up, and that's just to keep them off balance. And they know that it's just a rule. We don't complain about it. We work through and we make the adjustments. And if we can do that every day in practice, we ought to be able to do that in competition.
Jay, we're watching Bridget Dean now, Christina Desiderio opening up on Beam. But I want to ask you about the new postseason format in the NCAA. And obviously LSU will have the benefit of hosting a regional here in early April. But after that, things change a little bit.
Yeah, they do. And I think it's something that over the long haul will be a good thing for our sport in general. I know that there's mixed feelings about it within our coaches association, but we're taking a little bit of risk on the reward that it'll benefit the sport long term in terms of our exposure, our television coverage. It also gets things consistent throughout. In other words, going into a competition like regionals where we've had bye stations and then we don't have that all year long, and people don't. The fans kind of wonder what's going on. It's hard for them to follow when a team's on the bye, who's in the lead and who's not. This simplifies things. It gets us down to 4 teams at regionals, 4 at super regionals, and all the way through to the end of the year.
Well, specifically, the regional will have 9 teams come in here. There'll be a play-in, so after day 1, you've got 8 teams left. There'll be 2 4-team meets on day 2, and then the top 2 from each of those meets go on to day 3 to determine the 2 that go on to nationals. Did I get that right?
Yeah, basically, we're not allowed to call it a play-in, but that's effectively what it is The final spot will be there'll be a dual meet between those two teams, and then they'll have 2 sessions of 4 the first day, and a 1 session of 4 the next, and it basically mimics what will happen at the national championships perfectly. That does change your strategy as a coach in terms of when you rest your athletes and how much they get late in the season, and certainly we've already made some adjustments in what we project in terms of rest time for our kids.
This is Bridget Dean we're watching now on Beam.
And do you feel that this new format will be more difficult for a team like LSU to qualify to the Nationals?
Well, I think it's more difficult for everybody. I don't think there's anybody that can take anything for granted at this point. Come on, Bridge. It's when you narrow the field like that to 4, it becomes more difficult for everybody because you've really got to be on top of your game every time you go out there in the postseason, and there's no gimmies anymore. The parity has gotten tighter and tighter as the years have gone by, and you've seen a lot of that affect which teams finish out at the top. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's an unknown, and we really won't know until we do it.
We're watching the beam routine right now on Gymnastics 101. This was an event that LSU was number 3 in the nation on last year, and I thought, Jay, an event that great progress has been made in the last couple of years for LSU on beam.
Well, and you just watch Bridget Dean. We think Bridget Dean and Sammy Durante are going to be really key in taking those spots that Maya Hambrick and Erin McAdeg vacated from last year. They look beautiful in the gym doing what they're doing, and we really shouldn't miss a beat. What they lack is experience, and so it may be a little touch and go here and there right now just because of nerves, but we think that they're capable of getting the same kinds of scores that those two that vacated last year got.
Well, you mentioned Sammy Durante. We're about to see her. LSU last year, 49.725 on beam versus Arizona, and that tied an all-time school record.
Yeah, they don't get much better than that.
And Bridget Dean and Sammy Durante competing for the first time on beam since their JO careers.
That's right. When Sammy came in, she had come off of an ACL surgery in club gymnastics, and it took a while for her knee to get adjusted again, but she's doing great on those 2 events. We even train a little bit of floor with her, just kind of long-term projecting, trying to bring her along really, really slow there. She can full in on floor. She's got beautiful floor skills as well, but for now we're going to focus on bars and beam is a beautiful event for her, as you'll see.
This event has a little bit of a rule change this year, doesn't it? In that the participants are not allowed to pause as long as they have in the past.
Well, they can pause, but it's for a 1 count. You can't go any further than that, and we've practiced it, and she just went a little longer than what she normally does right there. But again, run home to mama, old habits, and we've trained it since September. We've paid a lot of attention to it. We've taken the deduction where necessary in inner squads, and we've pretty much gotten to where in our inner squads in the gym we don't see that deduction anymore. So it's like any other rule change in any sport. A lot of times officials really harp on it early on, trying to make sure that they send the message, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the first few meets of the year.
And the rule is a 2-second pause before a skill gives you a 1/10 deduction. Any longer than that, it is 2/10 deduction.
Right.
And according to Dee Dee Bro, she says we give them 1 gymnastics. Go.
That's it.
Anything longer than that is going to be a penalty.
And that's what we've been taking in the gym. And so we've really tried to harp on it as much as we possibly can.
And the same thing on floor. Between passes, those long pauses are not allowed anymore.
Yeah, it's not quite, at the elite level, they turn and tumble. It's choreography right up until they begin to sprint for their tumbling. They can still stop and before they go, but it's basically the same rule that applies. We've got to, we just need to keep that rhythm moving and not have any long pauses. And that sometimes the problem with that is that if they get off their music or if they get something, they get a little bit ahead in the routine, and then what do? There's a pause built in. So, working on covering those things is something that they have to go through.
Jay Clark joining us as we watch LSU participate on beam. Kennedy Edney is next. Jay, I've said it for last year and certainly already tonight. I think this young lady about to mount the beam potentially is the next superstar in the SEC, or certainly one of them.
Yeah, there's no doubt. She's an amazing competitor, an amazing person. Grown a lot, shown a lot of maturity and leadership this fall in her junior year. Made some changes in the way that she trains. She didn't like to train very much, and naturally doesn't, because she knows she can do well without a whole lot of numbers. So, you know, we've gotten her to change her approach a little bit, just from a mental standpoint in the gym, and we can keep her numbers really low, which we need to protect her body. But she's a great kid and one that we're very, very glad to have on our team.
And her dad was a basketball player for UCLA, Tyus Edney.
Tyus Edney.
How were you able to get her away from UCLA to come here?
I was a little starstruck when I got to go do the visit, when I got to meet him for the first time, because I watched him play on that 95 UCLA basketball team. But, you know, Kennedy, I had discovered her before I got here while I was still working at another school and had been watching her. And so first thing I did when I got out here, she's one of the first ones that I went out and looked at, and I felt like she might fly under the radar with some of the powerhouses that were on the West Coast, and just felt like she had good potential. And if we could, you know, get in on her early and had an angle, you know, maybe we could kind of steal her away. Unfortunately for us, it worked out.
She always looks cool as a cucumber. Nerves don't seem to rattle her. Is that really exactly what's going on inside her?
Yeah, I mean, you know, she does get a little nervous from time to time, but she's a very fun-loving, laughing, gregarious kid. And in meets, she draws that down quite a bit. Dee Dee, myself, we're all trying to remind her to show that big smile and let that personality show a little more this year, because she's a lot of fun to be around.
And how important is that in terms of building, you know, a really strong team, to have different personalities? You know, you have those stoic ones, the hard workers, the leaders, the fun-loving ones.
Yeah, well, it's very important, and it's one thing that I'm hopeful with our recruiting rules beginning to move us back to later recruiting, that we can get back to actually recruiting instead of rolling the dice on some kid that's in 8th grade that we can't even talk to and don't know anything about. I think, you know, recruiting is a bit of a lost art right now that hopefully is beginning to come back, and that we'll be able to ascertain some of those things about what their personality makeup is, how they fit into our philosophy, get to know the family, and develop a rapport and a relationship, which I think is really the crux and the heart of what recruiting ought to be.
Tell me about this young lady, Reagan Campbell, a sophomore, and Lori earlier talked about the need for this sophomore class to shake off some of those injuries and get into full gymnastics mode.
Yeah.
What's the potential for Reagan?
Well, our entire team's had to shake off some injuries that have lingered from last year. This year is part of the reason we're probably 2 or 3 weeks behind where we'd like to be. But if you watch this beam set right here, this kid has the potential to be an All-American for sure, but you know, she's got a beam set that's a potential NCAA championship type routine. She's just comfortable and beautiful up there. Comes from Texas Dreams Gymnastics, coached by Kim Zameskel, and just about everybody that I've ever had from that gym looks like this on balance beam. So Kim does an amazing job getting them there, and that's a product of Kim Zameskel coaching. That doesn't have anything to do with us, I can tell you that. But just look at the leaps there and the amplitude and the 180 that she hits. She works beam on toe, which you don't see a lot anymore. It's just it's a pleasure to watch her do balance beam. She's an amazing.
And she changed up the routine again this year. Last year, not able to do the back handspring layout series because of an ankle injury, and she says that she feels a lot more comfortable with this routine.
She does. She fought us when we did that routine last year, but we had no choice. We had to get her in there, and the ankle just wouldn't take going backward last year, and this year it's in a much better place, and she's in a much better place physically, and so we were able to go back to the skills that she's very, very comfortable with.
Here's Sarah Finnegan coming up next, and Jay, I don't know if the English dictionary carries enough adjectives to describe some of the performances she's had last year. I've already coined the phrase "win again" with Sarah Finnegan.
Yeah. Well, she's special. There's just no doubt about it. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of special athletes over the years. I'm sitting next to one of them right now, and Finnegan is up there with any of the all-time greats that I've had the joy of being associated with. She's just an amazing person. She's a joy to be around. She's level-headed. She doesn't get up. She doesn't get down. And that's the mark of so many that are of the greats.
How difficult was that we just saw?
Well, we've taken that down to just a single turn because it's easier for her. Her ankle's got a little tread wear on it, so we've finally gone away from the triple turn that we used to do that was so crowd-pleasing and everything, because we wanted to keep doing it, but it just wasn't worth. It was beginning to hurt her ankle when she's in that position, so we without the necessity for it, we went away from it. But even the single turn is hard to do well, and she does it very, very well. I can't say enough about her. She's like I said, she's there's been some great ones that I've been able to watch from and work with, but this one is right up there amongst the top.
So much control in her gymnastics. You've seen her be off just slightly, and she minimizes the deduction, pulling up for the landing. And how many times has she won a meet for you by sticking that dismount?
Well, one of the most technically perfect gymnasts ever. And so when you have good technique and you're a little bit off, you can still correct it because you increase your margin for error that way. She comes from Gage and Al Fong. Those guys, they produced Courtney McCool and Taryn Humphrey and so many others over the years that have been amazing technical gymnasts that are just beautiful to watch, and she's just another in a long line.
And when you have those training reps under your belt, you don't panic. You just adjust.
That's exactly right. And so trust is a big thing as a coach. And when Finnegan goes, when Sarah's out there, we know what we're going to get, and that's a comforting thing.
Jay Clark, thank you for stopping by and lending insight to veteran and beginning viewers of this burgeoning sport here in Baton Rouge. What LSU has done with gymnastics, truly one of the national stories the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and we averaged 12,000 fans last year, and we probably got 3,000 in here tonight. It's exciting to be part of that and to see the growth that's happened here. And so we're going to go to floor, and I'm going to spot a lot, so don't get too hard on our execution on us tonight.
All right, we'll be back for the final event tonight. Floor exercise, Gymnastics 101 continues on the SEC ESPN Network. We remind you that the Hold That Tiger Show on December 19th starts at 8 o'clock. It's a look at the new recruiting class in football for the LSU Tigers. We hope you'll join us on the SEC ESPN Network for that. It starts at 8 in the morning on December 19th, the Hold That Tiger Football Recruiting Show. With Lori Strong-Ballard, I'm Len Rollins. Lori, let's look in the rearview mirror at what we just saw on beam. We'll start with Kennedy Edney and then Reagan Campbell and Sarah Finnegan.
Well, LSU showed their great preparation on this event. Not many deductions on that pause rule. Kennedy Edney leading that group of 3 to anchor this beam set, showing her cool as a cucumber and her ability to get those stuck landings. Reagan Campbell showing exceptional beauty on this event. There's that old new tumble series that she has brought back. Jay Clark mentioned the exceptional extension in her leaps and jumps and getting a good landing here on her round-off double full.
I thought it was interesting that he said Reagan Campbell potentially could be a national champion on beam.
They love the look of that athlete, and so do the judges. We'll see it in the scoring this year. And Sarah Finnegan, she has that same look, the beautiful toe point, the extension in everything she does. 9.935 was her RQS last season. She is absolutely exceptional on this event.
So we'll come back and wrap it up with the floor exercise as Dee Bro in her 42nd year looks on, the head coach of the LSU Gymnastics Tigers. More in a moment on the SEC ESPN Network. Gymnastics 101 coming to a close with the floor event here in the Maravich Assembly Center. A very nice crowd on hand. This is a program that drew more than 12,000 fans on average to meets last year, and more of that is expected this season as well. One of the reasons is the ebullient spirit of the 42nd year head coach, Dee Bro. You see her right there, always wearing that Christmas sweater at this event.
And always with so much enthusiasm. She is a winner. And, we can add one more thing to her resume. She won a turkey carving contest.
Really?
She's a winner. And that type of spirit rubs off on her team and her staff and these fans. They want to be a part of this program. She's constantly out in the community pumping up the program and has done so much for the sport of gymnastics and women's sport over her 42 years here at LSU.
Lori, I know you've known Dee Bro for a long time, and so have I. And I can recall a decade ago her vision, her dream, some of the things that she went out and had her gymnastics team do in the community, literally asking people to come to the event. You don't have to know anything about gymnastics. You'll be blown away by the skill and the talent and the power of these young ladies, the courage, some of the almost unbelievable things that they can do, especially in this event. And it has paid off. I mean, that hard work. Now, this is the place to be on Friday nights in the spring.
The vision has come true for her. I mean, she packs this house. They love the sport. They love this team. That has to feel good. They have a brand new training facility. That was a huge thing high on her bucket list. She was able to get the funding and get the athletic department behind that. And now they have the #1 training facility in the country. That is a huge recruiting tool. And then, of course, bringing this program to be a winning program over the last several years, 2 runner-up at the championships, back-to-back SEC titles the last 2 years. I mean, they are winners and they are getting it done, and she must feel good about where she's brought this program.
We're watching Ruby Harold lead off the floor exercise for the Tigers. Last year, LSU was #2 in the nation in floor exercise.
Beautiful job double sticking that second tumbling pass. We talked about one of the great things about Gymnastics 101. It's the debut of these brand new floor routines, new choreography. Put together by Ashley Claire Kearney-Thigpen, who is a national champion on this event herself. She's the volunteer assistant coach with the team.
You know, speaking of floor, this surface is much, much different than what the Tigers practice on. This is the unforgiving meat surface. It's much harder, and I know you know it well. They don't use it during practice because they want to save those ankles and knees and hip joints. But this is an opportunity tonight to get on the floor that you're going to be on during varsity meets all spring.
Well, they will take some hard landings during practice, but most of the time they're landing on what's called a resi pit or on softer landing mats to save the body. And even here tonight, you're going to see Jay Clark out there spotting a few of the landings, just being cautious with these athletes so early in the season, making sure no one tweaks an ankle at this point.
Up next, Christina Desiderio out of Hackettstown, New Jersey, a sophomore.
She graduated high school early to join the team at a very young age last year. They were concerned with how she would handle it, how she would adjust. She had no problems. She's been a mainstay in their beam and floor lineup and has some big power here. Jay Clark will assist a little bit in the opening pass. Double layout, well done. Wow, I love the power in this music. Very well suited to her.
It's got a little bit of an Oriental theme, doesn't it?
Front tuck, step out, into a double back. She put up a career-high 9.9 on floor at the Super 6 finals. So showing that she can perform and put it together under pressure when the team needs her. Last pass, her third double salto pass. It requires a tremendous amount of power. Love it.
Christina Desiderio.
We talked about the pause rule on balance beam. It's also here on floor, so when they're standing in the corner, they can only take about 1 second to prepare themselves for their tumbling. That means that they need to have that endurance in the bank. They need to be physically prepared for these routines.
Sarah Edwards is scheduled to go next for LSU, and then we'll see McKenna Kelly for the first time in more than a year. She is training on 3 events this year, only participating on floor tonight as that rehabilitation continues from the torn Achilles tendon a year ago. But we're about to see McKenna Kelly following Sarah Edwards. Sarah Edwards up right now.
And for McKenna, it seems like every step forward is a milestone. She came out here during warm-up and just did a double back. You know, something she's done a million times, but the whole team cheered for her because they knew that was 1 step forward for her. Sarah Edwards opening with a beautiful front double full. She gets tremendous height on that forward tumbling pass. tumbling paths. You can see she's trying to look for the timing of the landing. Those are some of the adjustments they have to make here.
Presentation, the pizzazz, the juice of this event has changed a lot since you were competing, hasn't it? There's a lot more to it.
Absolutely. You can't just be a great tumbler. You have to have it all. You have to be a performer. There needs to be facial expressions. The choreography has to match your personality. It is a performance, like a theater performance from start to finish.
That was Sarah Edwards. As we take another look at this pass.
Front double full, excellent job. Good set in direction off the floor. That means that she can keep her legs together through 2 twists. Front full to a front layout. Good use of the arms into the front layout. That makes that second salto higher than the first and something the judges are looking for.
And now McKenna Kelly. This is a milestone performance for her, even though this is an intra-squad meet. 3 or 4 weeks ahead of the season opener in January. But McKenna Kelly has been sidelined for a year plus. And coming back now after rehabilitating the torn tendon. I don't know if her mother, Mary Lou Retton, is here, but if she's not, I'm sure she's watching on the internet.
I'm sure she is so excited for her daughter to be back out here. And if anyone follows McKenna's Instagram account, you can see that she is a very spiritual person. She is a very positive person. And she kind of documented her coming back every step of the way. So everyone here feels like they've been a part of this journey. Tough takeoff on an Achilles tendon, a double layout, tough landing as well, but no problem. Boy, that feels good. A couple months ago, I came to the gym and watched an inner squad, and you couldn't really get a feel for the power in the music choice this year. I'm absolutely loving it here in this large arena. The fans are really going to feel that energy and partake in it. I think one of the biggest things coming back from a major injury like that is just mentally coming back and knowing that the Achilles is going to take what you need to give it to be the powerful athlete that she is. What she has to remember is that the Achilles itself is actually stronger than it will ever be now after the surgery. There it is. Welcome back, McKenna. Great job.
Welcome back, champ.
Powerful run, round off back handspring, 2 rotations in the laid out position. See the determination and look on her face. Double back.
LSU a year ago was number 2 nationally in floor exercise, including a couple of perfect 10s on floor against Auburn a year ago. Sarah Finnegan had one, and so did Hambrick. And right now, Sarah Finnegan will get her senior season underway.
Please welcome to the floor the reigning SEC All-Around Champion.
This young lady, the reigning SEC All-Around Champion and SEC Gymnast of the Year in 2018.
She's
Truly one of the best ever.
scored a perfect 10 against Auburn last year and over a 9.9 8 times throughout the season on this event. One and a half through to a 2.5 twist. Very difficult twisting tumbling pass. Actually, at that inner squad I was at, she had not had her choreography done yet. So this is the first time I'm seeing this beautiful routine.
It looks effortless, but it's anything but that.
Okay, at this point in the routine, you are simply exhausted, and the fact that she's playing with her dance and her choreography is so thrilling.
And still a great deal of height. Nicely done.
Absolutely stunning.
Sarah Finnegan.
Four twists in this opening pass, a 1.5 into a 2.5. The timing has to be dead on to keep it in bounds and to put it on your feet.
Boy, that's a lot of stuff early, isn't it? And now the anchor tonight, Kennedy Edney, who had a 9.975 on this event last year. That was her season's best, and it's her career best. She averaged 9.842 a year ago. You know, it was interesting for me to hear Jay Clark talk about away from the gymnast, the practice and the gym floor, that Kennedy Edney is very outgoing, very sociable, very much ebullient and smiling. You wouldn't really know that watching her demeanor in the meet. She turns on that serious button, doesn't she?
Oh, she's an intense competitor, but she is absolutely a fun-loving teammate. Those kind of teammates that you really absolutely love to have around. Last year, an All-American on 3 events and in the all-around. Huge height on a double Arabian.
There's a lot more percussion in this music this year on this event, isn't there?
Oh my gosh, the power is just exuding from every routine. I absolutely love it. Just imagine here at a home meet with the stadium packed, the fans just enthralled in every routine and hearing this aggressive and powerful music. Missed her set a little bit on that tumbling pass. Jay had to step in just to make sure no short landings were taken today. But the routine is there. The power is there. It is early in the season. They've done a great job.
Once again, this is Kennedy Edney. Watch the height and the power and the grace.
1.5 to a front layout. That is a required skill to do a tumbling pass with 2 saltos in it. There's the last tumbling pass. She knew it. The look on her face, a little bit more set, and she'll have it.
Well, we'll be back as all of the events are completed now on Gymnastics 101 at LSU. We're going to have a conversation with Coach Dee Dee Bro in a moment as we come back to wrap things up. We hope you've enjoyed it. Stay with us. We've got more from the Maravich Center on the SEC ESPN Network. Everyone, Gymnastics 101, at least the performance part of it in the books right now, and certainly another enthusiastic crowd on hand. This building, perhaps 3,000-4,000 folks here. Again, if you missed it last year, LSU averaged more than 12,000 people at each gymnastics meet at home. The number 1 attendance figure in the SEC, the number 2 attendance figure nationally. And if what we've seen so far tonight, Lori Strong-Ballard, is indicative of what's to come in 2019, then again, this place is going to be rocking starting on January 4th.
I can't wait to see those floor teams with a packed house. The energy level will be absolutely amazing. I think this was a very successful Gymnastics 101. It was meant to prepare these athletes for the big stage, for intense competition, and I think it did just that. These coaches, the coaching staff, modestly say they feel they're about 2 to 3 weeks behind where they would like to be, but they are still in a very good place. I think these athletes stepped up very nicely today. Something that Dee Dee touched upon, especially on floors, when you get out here competing in front of a crowd, all of a sudden your performance level just naturally goes up and you exude and expend a lot more energy, and sometimes that requires even more endurance.
You know, scores weren't the primary importance today, but I thought the quality of what we saw was actually a notch above perhaps what we saw last year and the year before.
The quality was exceptional. The landings, of course, they're going to get better throughout the season. The difficulty was there, and they still have more to add to that. So I think a strong performance overall from everyone today.
Well, we are delighted to have Dee Dee Bro with us now in her 42nd year as coach of the LSU Gymnastics team. What?
People keep saying 42nd year. You know, give me 10 or 14 of those years back. You know, because these last 10 have been the best ever.
Tell me about your initial reaction about what you saw tonight from your team, top to bottom.
Very pleased. I think they competed with each other. They competed for LSU and had a fabulous crowd in here. And we knew the adjustments that we wanted them to make. We wanted them to get used to the landings. We wanted them to be able to feel the crowd and feed from that energy, and they did. We asked them on vaulting to be explosive. We all but one vault, I think, you know, and we knew, you know, Ruby has a hard time getting herself going and making the transition from soft to hard landings. But very, very good. And, you know, we had a couple of kids that we didn't vault. McKenna Kelly, we're real excited. That's coming. Went to bars. I felt like our handstands were really, really strong. And fighting for landings. You know, we've been working very hard at the execution end of it and making strong transitions from the high bar to the low bar. And, you know, we saw that tonight. We would have liked for Kennedy to stick or dismount because she sticks it in practice all the time. But, you know, it's a different environment. Then they went to beam and they rocked it. You know, and the deduction now that if you wait or hesitate before a tumbling scale, you get 1 gymnastics. If you're not gone by then, that's a 10th deduction. 2 gymnastics, that's 2 tenths. And we started working on that the first day they got back in the gym, and it showed. They're very responsive. They want to do well. They want to compete. They loved it in here. They talk about their Tiger Nation, and they showed up tonight. The fans showed up, went to floor, and this is the event. It's the hardest to get used to because you're dealing with an endurance factor. So, you know, I think we were a little bit weak in some of our last passes, but we've got a little bit of time to get that better, and we've got other kids that are going to be able to compete to get into that lineup. So for right now in December, I'm fired up.
And what about McKenna Kelly coming
back? How about that? Yeah. You know, and that middle pass is a go-to pass, and, you know, what we'd like to do is do her front through and then finish with a double pike. But if that doesn't happen and she can compete at that level, then it's a win-win. And maybe by the end of the year we can begin to feed a little more difficulty into that routine. But we're excited to have her back.
And a huge win for the team who were supporting her every step of the way through her rehab, and to see them be so excited for her to get out there today.
It was exciting. Was the show good?
Indeed.
Good? All right.
Tell me about the January schedule. California comes in here, and
Berkeley.
then boom, you got Auburn, you've got Florida
I think we
in
go
that
to
mix.
Auburn.
You do.
Then Florida comes here.
This place will be rocking with Florida in mid-January.
It's going to be great. You know, we go to Auburn. It's hard to compete at Auburn. Very hard. The fans are on the floor. I mean, right. You can reach and touch the kids on the. So it's not a great situation. But, I think our schedule sets us up very nicely to, you know, as we lead into the postseason with, you know, a big event in New Orleans. And, you know, that's a destination city. I mean, are you kidding me? People all over the country are calling me right now to see, you know, hotel rooms or help them with the Sugar Bowl. But, you know, that's just a destination for New Year's, you know, by itself. And then you dump the Georgia and Texas on top of it. And then we get to go there and compete in the Smoothie King Arena. fabulous, fabulous competition.
Tell me your opinion, the Dee Bro opinion about the postseason changes.
I love it.
Why they have been done, and what you think it will do for the sport.
Well, 4 years ago, I didn't vote for it. I voted for it now because the SEC Championship is such a great event with 4 teams on the floor, no byes. And, some coaches have been pushing for this for a long time, and I've resisted it. But it's time. It's time. This is such a great TV event to not have any byes. I mean, we did this tonight in an hour. And the SEC Championships with 4 teams on the floor, we get that thing done in an hour. And those kids, it's fast and it's hard, and the fans understand it. The leader is the leader. There's never a question, they're on a bye, and let's see what happens. That's what the sport needs. And, TV, Friday Night Heights, ESPN, the SEC Network has been amazing and has built such a great fan base for us that it was time that we eliminated the kind of trim the fat off that meat and just went head to head, just straight ahead.
Dee, we look forward so much to January 4th. It'll be here before you know it, and it's going to be an extraordinary season again with this place rocking and all across the SEC. The whole sport is blooming.
You just our pep band and all the excitement, all the kids that came out on a school night, and the posters and everything that was here, and our concessions have revved up, and everything about this venue, everything about this. Joe Oliva has made some great changes to this arena. Our scoreboard is amazing, and it's just a great place to compete, and it's a good time to be at LSU.
Hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas,
Y'all too.
and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Gymnastics 101 in the books. Another year for the LSU Tigers. Another piece of anticipation of the excitement of LSU Gymnastics just around the corner. For Lori Strong-Ballard, I'm Lynn Rollins saying so long from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You've been watching LSU Gymnastics 101. To watch this entire meet on replay, as well as other games on our family of ESPN networks, log on to WatchESPN.com or download the Watch ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.